Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobby Capucci, and this is Daily Drop number 26. All right, so on this show, I like to present all sides of every single argument, right? So what I'm going to do tonight is I have two articles. The first one we're going to read is from the Daily Beast, and it says, Hooey. NYC medical examiner dismisses Epstein homicide claim by Dr. Michael Baden. So we have conflicting storylines. You had to figure that the medical examiner was going to step out and say that Baden was lying or he was incorrect, considering she had already rendered her report. So that's the first article. And the second article is about the journalist who stormed Epstein's island. So I'll post both links in the description. You'll be able to click on both of those links and read the stories for yourselves like usual. And on the link where the reporter stormed the island, there's actually a bunch of pictures where you could look at like some of the different things on the island, the temple, etc., etc. All right, so let's jump right in and let's follow up with our earlier report today about Michael Baden saying that the Jeffrey Epstein's death was more consistent with strangulation by homicide as opposed to suicide. Now, this is the counter-narrative to that. New York City's chief medical examiner pushed back hard Wednesday against a celebrity pathologist for hire's conspiracy-stirring claim that Jeffrey Epstein's autopsy was more consistent with homicide than suicide. All right, you could already see from the tone that we're setting. The author of this piece, pathologist for hire's conspiracy-stirring claim, already right off the jump is discrediting Dr. Baden right off the bat. The original medical investigation was thorough and complete. There is no reason for a second medical investigation by our office, said Dr. Barbara Sampson. Well, maybe not by your office, but don't you think that you should provide all of those documents to the family? I don't care who the family is, be it Epstein or anyone else. I think that the family should have the records of their deceased relative, and if they want to perform their own investigation, you certainly should not stand in their way, Dr. Sampson. Sampson determined Epstein died by suicide from hanging in his jail cell in August while he was awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. All right, stop, pause. From hanging, that would mean hanging from like the ceiling, right? That's what they're trying to imply, but we all know that that isn't the case. We all know that it was from the second bunk. We all know that he leaned forward to hang, not your traditional hanging like you would see in a movie per se. Epstein's lawyers and family have refused to accept her finding, and the disgraced financier's brother hired Dr. Michael Baden, erstwhile host of HBO's Autopsy, to do his own investigation. During an appearance Wednesday morning on Fox News, where he is a contributor, Baden said his own review isn't complete, but nonetheless suggested that suicide isn't the cause of death. Okay, you're doing the same exact thing, suggesting that suicide is not the cause of death. You don't have all of the evidence. All you have to go on is what the medical examiner told you. So once again, you're going by what the elites told you, what the establishment told you, what the legacy media says to you, what they tell you to believe. I think a further investigation is warranted, no? He claimed a collection of neck fractures in Epstein's hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage are extremely unusual in suicidal hangings and could occur much more commonly in homicidal strangulation. That's a fact. We did the research for that. We saw that that was a fact. I've not seen in 50 years where that occurred in a suicidal hanging case, Baden said. Although more common in homicidal strangulation cases, in homicidal strangulation cases, some studies, they don't refer to any studies here except for one down here, but some studies, so they say multiple studies and only referring to one. Although more common in homicidal strangulation cases, some studies have found that hyoid and thyroid fractures are not rare in suicidal hangings. A 2000 study in Australia found fractures in nearly half the 40 suicide cases it examined and said they were even more common in older victims and men. In fact, 15% had fractures of both the hyoid and the thyroid. Oh, a whole whopping 15%? Breaking news, but that means 85% of them did not. Okay? And the 2010 study out of Thailand found such fractures in 25% of the confirmed suicides it reviewed. All right, so let's get some context. How about you add that? I don't think you've added that, though, author from the Daily Beast. Is that because you have an agenda? Does the Daily Beast have an agenda? Come on, no way. All right. Bodden, who observed the autopsy performed by Sampson, served briefly as the city's chief medical examiner before being fired in 1979 by then-Mayor Ed Koch in response to a complaint that he told doctors during a guest-speaking event that Governor Nelson Rockefeller had died during sexual intercourse. Okay, so continuing with the hit piece, as opposed to, see, this is the problem with the media. As opposed to sticking to the facts, they go right in for the hit piece. They go right in for the Nancy Kerrigan knee shot. Why do they have to do that? Why can't you just provide the evidence from both sides? Like the Fox article did that pretty well. It wasn't really saying one way or the other. This is right. This is like the author of this piece feels like it's their job to come out and defend the establishment, defend the examiner's office. Why? They haven't shown you anything. This dude observed the autopsy. Did you? No, you didn't. 3 years later, he was dismissed as chief deputy medical examiner by Suffolk County, New York, over a magazine article about ways to kill that wouldn't show up in an autopsy. He protested that he was misquoted. In the 70s, Bodden helped Congress investigate the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. All right, so he was thought of well enough to be asked to investigate the assassination of the President of the United States and Martin Luther King Jr., but the author of this piece knows better than him. And now look, please don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that he's correct and it was suicide, but what I'm saying is the way this article's written is to make you discount what he had to say earlier. They're trying to run a counter narrative to protect the original narrative. And it's so weird. That's not what the media's job is. The media's job is to provide us the news. He concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald and James Earl Ray, respectively, were the killers, but became famous for serving as a private pathologist in high-profile cases like the Aaron Hernandez suicide, the O.J. Simpson murder trial, and the Jason Williams shooting. He also served as a defense witness in the Phil Spector murder trial, where he reportedly testified that he had no conflict of interest in the case, even though his wife was heading Spector's legal team. Okay. Bodden isn't the only one skeptical about the official account of Epstein's death at the high-security federal lockup in Manhattan, which is currently the subject of a Justice Department probe. All right, so they just kind of glide right into that, right? All right, well, we made Bodden made him out to look like a quack, but let's slide right into this and say he's not the only one that believes that. Spencer Coven, a lawyer representing victims of Epstein, said serious questions remain, including the whereabouts of the guards assigned to monitor him, why the cameras outside his cell apparently didn't work, and why he was taken off of suicide watch. Okay, now, as the author of this piece, don't you think that you would be on the phone with MCC and finding out what the deal is? And then if you get stonewalled, don't you go to your publication and see this is where they have the advantage over independent journalists. They can go to their publication and their publication could push to try and get access to try and get the story. But instead, no. They instead write a hit piece. They don't give us any new information. They just give us a bit of a backstory on Michael Bodden that really doesn't matter to this story. It all makes no sense. Until they come out with the evidence, I don't believe anything they're telling us, Coven said. I think that's a perfectly logical stance to have at this point, don't you? I mean, let's be real. When have they ever been honest with us? Exactly what happened, I can't tell you, but but I certainly don't believe the story they're trying to feed everyone. Sigrid McCauley, an attorney at Boies Schiller Flexner, the law firm representing some of Epstein's victims, said the ongoing Justice Department probe limits what can and should be said at this time. But as the public has come to understand the horrifying scope and scale of the international, we've been talking about that as well, sex trafficking system he operated for decades with impunity, what really matters for the brave survivors who are seeking justice is how he lived, not how he died, she said. That is how the man should be judged. Coven said his clients are more interested in seeing co-conspirators prosecuted than in delving into Epstein autopsy theories. 100%. I feel the same way. I'd much prefer to see these people get justice, but at the same time, we're not just going to let go of all these weird circumstances surrounding his suicide, aka death, whatever you want to call it, until we get those answers. We're going to talk about that. That's what free societies do. We discuss things. All right? We're not going to have anyone tell us, no, you can't talk about that. No, that's not a conversation that should be had. Get out of here. Beat it. We're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about. The justice system failed. They either allowed him to take his own life or someone got in there and killed him, Coven told the Daily Beast. Either way, it's a failure of the Justice Department, which has failed them repeatedly over the last 13 years. This was just one more time. Bing, bang, boom. He's 100% correct with that. We all know the Justice Department has one set for them and one set for us. If you've been listening to the show, you know I drive that point home on a regular basis. These guys think they're smooth with their different sets of rules, with the way they conduct themselves, and then the way they expect us to conduct ourselves. That's the kind of thing that subjects have imposed on them. And I don't know about you, but I am not a subject. I am a citizen. All right, so that was the article from the Daily Beast that ran in counter to what we talked about earlier. And like I said, I like to be fair here. If I could find opposing opinions on things, I like to talk about both sides of the story, and then we come to our own opinions here, right? We don't get led into anything. We don't get talked into anything. The evidence leads us where we're going, and the evidence leads us, hopefully, to the truth. All right, so this next article is pretty awesome. These dudes who stormed this island, Luke Rudkowski and Jeff Berwick of We Are Change, they stormed the island and they got pictures and all sorts of great stuff, right? So this is an article from the Daily Mail. The headline is, Revealed. Jeffrey Epstein massage room, underground lairs, temple, and trick doors on Pedophile Island, his Caribbean hideaway that still has its own ambulance and remains fully staffed. All right, first of all, why the hell do you need an ambulance on this island, right? Is there a hospital? I don't understand. Let's jump into the article. Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change, these are the bullet points, by the way, before the article starts. Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change and Jeff Berwick filmed some of the buildings on Little St. James, Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean hideaway. The men got inside an office on the island, as well as getting a look at one of the outdoor massage rooms. Rudkowski also explored a few of those underground structures, including one that appeared to house the island's generator. The video revealed that the wooden doors on the island's infamous temple are painted on and not real. Their journey was cut short, though, when they were forced to flee from staff who began chasing them down, they said in the video. One staff member was seen just a few feet away from Rudkowski with fresh towels in one shot. All right. That last bullet point, they spell Luke's name wrong. It's Rudkowski, not Ridkowski. Make sure you check those dudes out over at We Are Change. They do great work. This will be linked in there so you can check out those pictures. You got it. Make sure you check those pictures out. There's some insanely weird stuff going on this island. We've talked about it, the temples. We've talked about some of the other weird stuff on this island. But before I start rambling on, let's jump into the article and read it and see what's what. The outdoor massage room where underage girls would tend to Jeffrey Epstein is seen for the first time in new video shot by two men who claim they raided his Caribbean hideaway. Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change and Jeff Berwick were able to get onto the island and explore Epstein's office, a few of the underground lairs, and get close enough to the pedophile's infamous temple on Little St. James to reveal that the doors of the structure are in fact painted on the building. Their journey was cut short, though, when they were forced to flee from staff who began chasing them down, they said in the video. And there is still plenty of staff on the island, as in one shot a man can be seen in the reflection of a window, walking just a few feet away from Rutkowski with what looks like a mop and some towels. It is unclear who the fresh towels are for. Alright, hold up. Why is this island still in operation? Why hasn't it been seized by the government? I don't understand. How are there people still there? Who is paying them? Why are they being paid? What is going on this island still? Why are these guys getting chased off of this island? I don't get it. There's also a look at an office on the island which has the manual for a charger and a little British flair in the form of a sign that reads, "Keep calm and carry on." Next up, Rutkowski explored a few of those underground structures, including one that appeared to house the island's generator. The final scene of the men fleeing, shot a few minutes after an island staffer strolled by Rutkowski, is cut with a look at the massage room. Alright, so they spelled his name wrong again. Now they spelled it Rodkowski. Alright, and the back to the article. 2 beds lay on a floor in an outdoor hut, which has a full kitchen in the neighboring room. The biggest surprise, however, is the doors on Epstein's temple. The actual entrance to the structure is boarded up, and what has long appeared to be a functional wooden door turns out to be a bit deceptive. Once up close, the video reveals that those 2 doors on the temple, hold on guys, the temple, right? Who needs a temple on their private island? What do you mean a temple? Who are you praying to? Have anything to do with that spirit cooking and those Podesta emails, maybe? Abramovich around? You guys having a spirit cooking luncheon? Once up close, the video reveals that those 2 doors on the temple are painted on and that Epstein has his initials on the temple. The temple on the island remains without its dome, however, which has been missing for some time. One local told DailyMail.com that they were under the impression that Epstein had his staff remove the dome ahead of a hurricane. Hurricane Irma, which was a Category 5 storm when it made landfall on the island, is still the most powerful hurricane to ever hit the Atlantic region. The dome never went back up, however, and now the temple sits unadorned and stripped on the island. As it should. Burn that thing to the ground. Who knows what went on in that place? And look, I'm not one of these guys that's like, into the whole theory that people are like running around with pitchforks and having satanic mass and stuff, but when you start reading in these emails from these people to each other that were released in the WikiLeaks dump, the Podesta dump, about spirit cooking, and then you start researching what all of that stuff is, I mean, there's questions that need to be answered, my man. I mean, look, you guys need to answer some questions. People aren't crazy for asking these questions. Now, do I think some people go a little overboard with some of the far out conspiracy theories? For sure, but that's not my place to tell people what to think. If they do research and that's what they come to, hey, who am I to tell them not to believe that? Like I said here though, we're presenting facts here, and what's going on right now is completely and utterly crazy. Today has been a crazy day for news. The temple has been of great interest to members of the QAnon community who had been talking about the island long before Epstein's current arrest or Julie Brown's explosive expose in the Miami Herald. It wasn't just people in the QAnon community. It was people that have followed the case, that have seen pictures, that have wondered, why do you have a temple there? Many members of the community believe that Epstein hid young girls he allegedly enslaved in underground rooms below the temple and other parts of the island. There is no concrete evidence to support that claim, but the community's belief that a famous actress was recruiting young victims for Epstein is not completely implausible. Wow. Now you have the Daily Mail stepping out talking about this stuff even. It's not completely implausible, etc., etc. Hey, it's not. I mean, look at what's going on with NXIVM and Allison Mack and Keith Raniere. This stuff is happening, folks. We have to open our eyes. They talk about being woke. Well, this is being woke. If you're not woke to what's really going on and the abuse of people that are considered nothing more than cattle, Well, I don't know what to tell you. That's what being really woke is, because these rich elites, they don't care. Just take a look. Just take a look at what this guy got away with, what he kept even in death, what he's getting away with. Epstein was the owner of not one, but 2 islands in the Caribbean, having more than doubled his property holdings in January 2016 when he paid $18 million for Great St. James. So that is in 2016 with bin Salman when he purchased the island in his name. Now, mind you, this is a bunch of years after he's been arrested for this nonsense, but I guess, when you're a rich Gulf Coast elite, Middle Eastern elite, this is all par for the course. You can just do whatever you want. You don't care if the guy's a molester as long as you're getting paid, right? That 162-acre property is located next to Little St. James, the 71.5-acre island he purchased in 1998 for $7.95 million. And Epstein had big plans for the latest addition to his already sizable real estate portfolio prior to his death. This included the addition of a barge dock, 2 homes, cottages, an amphitheater, gardens, a marine electrical cable, solar array and generator, storage building, security building, work shed, machine shop, and an underwater office and pool. That barge and a few completed structures as well as construction equipment are still visible in aerial images of the island. This work has been done despite the fact that only the construction of a flagpole and repair of cisterns has been approved on the island. Alright, so he didn't pull any permits for this stuff. Why would he? Well, he's not going to get in trouble. He'd grease whatever palms he needed to. He does whatever he wants. Meanwhile, if you or I turn our garage into an apartment, forget it. We got code violations, fines. People are kicking in our door with machine guns, probably, like the what's it called? The guys that were in Waco. It's unbelievable. Epstein's plans hit a snag, however, soon after he purchased the island when he was hit with a pair of cease and desist orders. The first citation was in regards to unpermitted land clearing. Epstein eventually managed to remedy that situation by paying a $70,000 fine. Oh, it's almost like I'm a psychic, right? Records show and paid an even steeper fine after the second offense in October. Yeah, because that guy's boss that he greased, his boss needed to get his hand greased now. So bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, everybody's getting a piece, everybody's wetting their beak. Like I said, it's like organized crime, folks. This is a RICO case. Where's the RICO case? The exact amount is not known, but the fine was between $140,000 and $180,000. That buys a lot of Modelo Lights. Work then continued, mostly on clearing the dense vegetation to make a main road around the island, until December of last year. That is when Epstein was again hit with yet another cease and desist, which it seems he opted to ignore. Sounds like probably a blackmail case, or probably trying to get more dough from him. Workers have continued to forge ahead on the plans over the past few weeks, even while Epstein was behind bars. Authorities had been trying to get on the island to determine what was going on for close to a year prior to Epstein's death. Okay, really? They weren't trying hard enough, because this is the federal government we're talking about. If they wanted to pull that warrant, they could pull that warrant. They could pull warrants for anything. They had warrants to spy on Papadopoulos. They could pull warrants for whatever they want. They didn't for a reason. Who told them not to? These are the questions that must be asked. He had erected no trespassing signs throughout the island due to the area's popularity with tourists, who are now turning out in even higher numbers after his death. Local laws make all land below the tide or bush lines public property, so Epstein could not legally kick people off of those lands. These 2 islands were not his only major holding in the area either, with Epstein also owning 50% stake in America Yacht Harbor, a port that slips for 123 yachts, sailboats, and pleasure crafts, as well as a strip mall of offices. I wonder who has their yachts stored there. Maybe that's something we should look into. Epstein's firm, Southern Trust Company, was in that same strip, where he operated at least 15 LLCs in the 2 decades prior to his death, according to public records obtained by DailyMail.com. Those records also revealed that his office manager for much of that time was Cecile Dijon, the former First Lady of the Virgin Islands. You see, folks, you see what's going on? How do you think he got those bribes through? How do you think he got that land through? How do you think he got it so nobody was able to come to that land? Because he's paying people. Money talks. Money talks. We all know that. It is unclear what, if any, benefits Epstein had been afforded because of his hiring of De Jong. Oh, well, we can speculate, right? I mean, the media is good at speculating these days. That's all they do is speculate. So let's speculate. I'm sure he got plenty of benefits for hiring her. Really? You really think that it was no quid pro quo? Isn't that the buzzword going on right now in the media? Quid pro quo? Well, looks like some quid pro quo going on here. She was not first lady when she took the job. Oh, well, that's all right. And her husband John's run happened to coincide with the exact moment the allegations against Epstein first became public. He was eventually elected to office in 2007 and served 2 terms as governor despite his wife's ties to Epstein. Of course, because they ran the same line, I bet. We knew nothing. Come on. And you see the deal he got. It wasn't that bad. It was a slap on the wrist. He wasn't that bad of a person. Oh, man. So here we are. Once again, more news breaking. For some reason, we have just a flurry of news today. Several articles. These are the main ones, obviously. But here we go. Let's hope that this is a new trend going forward. Let's hope that the media keeps releasing articles and they keep pushing this story to the forefront where it belongs. And as far as the suicide situation, like I told you guys earlier this morning, make up your own minds with that situation. Nobody can tell you one way or the other until the real evidence has all been presented and put on the table. Do you trust some medical examiner? I don't. I've never even heard of that lady. Why should I trust her? Because she's a medical examiner? Give me a break. She doesn't have any credibility with me just because somebody else tells me that she's credible. And the same goes for Bodden. He could very well be passing off disinformation. We have to see. But everything needs to be explored in this case. The rabbit hole is deep and there are many Warrens and we must explore everything. All right. Hope everybody has a great night. We'll be back tomorrow for another daily drop. And, like I always say, we'll see where the case takes us. See you guys later.